Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Joanne, financial update? Unmute,
Come off of mute, Joanne.
unmute.
Sorry about that, guys. So there's no change in the reports from last meeting, the board meeting that was as of December 31st. Checks drawn today are 36,475, of which 23,147 are FAD disbursements. We started the audit. I'm providing information to the auditors. She will be doing the audit remotely this year via Zoom, which is fine. And we have that scheduled for 9 a.m. February 3rd, next Tuesday, to start. And then she will, I'll provide a lot of information to her that day. She will be doing an interview via Zoom. And then on February 15th through 19th, that week will be the final wrapping up the audit, any journal entries, anything that has to be done. And I'll present at the February meeting what their final, if they had any comments or anything. So that's going well. I'm pleased with that. What else? There is a T-bill coming due on Tuesday at Ramirez and Company, and Bob Fuhr, already is looking into what we can reinvest that money into. It's 1.5 million. We do not need that in our bank account. We have about 7 million FAD funds to work with for the spring and summer, so that will be reinvested.
So the plan is to reinvest that at this time?
Yeah, even though it's not getting us really anything,
All
but
of
it's
that.
getting us more than
Yeah.
what's in the bank.
Yeah.
We're not paying. We don't have to pay to keep our money there. So,
Yeah, well, that's good.
so that's about it. And the list of due dates, which is the next agenda item, we did file our 1099 forms for the year. They've been completed and mailed out to the outside consultants. The fourth quarter payroll forms have all been filed. O&M, we did receive all of our submittals. I think we have one little thing we have to go over with Lou Sparrow. Peter, I know there was a difficulty because of the guy in your office had a surgery or something. So we're finalizing
Yeah,
that.
quadruple bypass just for in pass.
Yeah. So that we'll finalize that, and everything else everyone else has submitted. So I'm working through the O&M calculations. And Linda has been very helpful this year with working on being in touch with board members regarding here's the schedule regarding the conflict of interest and the board evaluations, and all of those things for the new year for 2021 are being worked on currently. So we'll try to get all those in. And the financial disclosure, of course, we have until May 15th on that.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next on the agenda is just an update on the National Academy of Science stakeholders meetings that the DEP is hosting. Warren and I attended the last one. It really was focused on west of Hudson watershed issues, really not too much to do with us. Warren, you have anything else you want to add to that?
No, that it was a lot of it was on land purchase and things, and that was all west of Hudson.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
had
we have another one
a
today.
bunch of groups that wanted. It was interesting, you have the groups that want the land purchased, and you have the towns and the municipalities that are trying to kind of maintain some semblance of municipality.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Next is Corporation Controller. As many of you should be aware by now, Joe is planning on retiring in June of this year. We'll see if that actually happens.
Why do you say that?
I talked to her yesterday. I think it'll happen.
The world changes daily.
Well, this is true, Rich. I agree with you there. So nothing is set in stone, but I would hope that June 3rd would be my last day, and that's what I'm working towards.
So we need to start looking for a replacement. I did put together a help wanted ad, a solicitation for a controller. I believe everybody got a copy of it. I've heard back from Joanne that she thinks the salaries we're offering on it are a little low. Anybody else have any comments on it or questions about it?
No, I think Joanne's told, I talked to Joanne yesterday too. I know you have also, but she's obviously, still invested, wants to make sure we get the right person in and will help us through that. So she's been you've been pretty phenomenal, Joanne. So
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
great to see you.
I agree.
Yeah, I think she's going to be in a car driving out to California come June 4th.
Oh, is that the plan?
And
Yeah, I think it's kids and stuff.
my daughter lives out there and I haven't seen her in a year, so.
Nice.
I wanted to add that it was our,
She can do all the work from the car if we really need it. So
Well, obviously, we're all learning to work remotely, so
That's
you can
true.
work in California.
I wanted to add that it was our hope and intention to have somebody in this position while Joanne was still on board, so that we
Yep.
can make sure, Joanne kind of does a lot of things behind the scenes that we're just not, we're not privy to, that I think that it's imperative that we have her on board while we have this new hire to make the transition as seamless as we can. So I think what we were kicking around was having somebody in this position and selecting them in April, so that we could get maybe a full solid month of time with them overlapping.
I was
yeah, I
hoping
would
to do it
agree. Being
before
the
then.
treasurer, I would absolutely agree.
Well, yeah, I think it's going to depend on how much of a response we get. If we can get somebody in before then that's great.
Yeah, I would tend to want to go a little more than 4 weeks. I would think 6 would be nice, and so that may require us to spend a couple of extra grand, some more money. But there's just so many different things that Joanne does, and it's done seamlessly. We don't see it, and the new person is, even if they're good, they're going to have to understand exactly where to go, what to look for. We're a little bit unusual, the type of organization we are. So I would agree with you, Kevin.
So what's everybody's opinion on the base salary of 75,000 and 90,000?
Well, the base is probably a little low. We can always, if you think it's going to defer people from coming in and talking to us, you can always set the range a little bit larger. But what we want is somebody there's nobody they're gonna talk to Joanne for a few weeks, and then they're going to be on their own. And I've been through this before, where we've had people in the position that couldn't do the job at all. And I was at one point in time, I was actually trying to do payroll myself, which was a joke because I don't do that. So there's just a lot of pieces of this. It's not huge, but you need to be able to do everything, and you need to be able to do it without mistakes. And I don't know if you folks, I don't know who was here, a while ago, we had somebody that worked from home for 6 months, and it turns out they didn't touch the system for 6 months. And
Yeah, that was interesing, wasn't it?
it was on
I
the floor.
remember that.
And, the person had uterine cancer and all these other wonderful things. And, there was a bunch of reasons for it, but we were an absolute freaking mess. And I think Joanne pulled us all out of that. And everything just runs seamlessly right now. There's no discussion about any of the financials. It just works. So even investing the money and stuff, she's kind of picked up all that on her own. We're not making a lot this year, but she's probably paid for her salary just in terms of that every year. So I would like to see somebody in maybe at least 6 weeks to, I think to your point, Rich, I think I heard you say you want to bring somebody in earlier. And if you want to put it out there with a little larger range, when they come in and they talk to you, just decide that they're a $90,000 person instead of a $100,000 person.
So what are we doing with the range? Leaving it?
You can always
I would take Warren's advice on that and open up the range if you need to. But yeah, that range works.
You wanna go 80 to 95,000?
You can keep it at 75.
75 to 90.
Look, we're going to want to get somebody in that's not learning
Oh, no, I agree.
So you can have a larger range, but if the larger range means there's people that are less competent coming in, I would not be happy with that. I know when we were originally interviewing everybody, and I don't remember who was in the meeting at the time. Joanne, how long have you been here? 7 years?
7 years. Mhm.
Yeah, it's mind boggling. Joanne walked in and I was like, that's the person. So, sometimes you just have a good feeling, especially the crap I went through before that. I was very much invested in it. I'm still invested in it because I don't want to go back through the same crap again. None of us do. So I just want to make sure we get the right person. If it's an extra $5,000, I don't think that's a huge amount of money to pay to make sure everything is run seamlessly. I know the salaries maybe are a little less the further north you go, but down in Westchester, they're
Let's put an ad in the Dutchess paper.
yeah.
Well, we're certainly not going to advertise in Lower Westchester. We really need to bump this up a lot. So everybody's okay with the 75 to 90,000 is what I'm
Yep.
hearing.
It sounds like it, but I would just say if somebody comes in and needs more money, that we come back and discuss it if they're a great candidate.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
Morning, Marianne.
Morning.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Linda, we
Yes,
can get this in some local papers. We want to advertise on Indeed.
yes, yep, through ZipRecruiter. That's what we used the last time. And they
Okay.
do the newspaper and Indeed at the same time.
Joanne, do you know of any trade magazines or organizations we could advertise this in?
Not at this point. When I used to look for jobs, I used to go through the, Robert Half agencies, the agencies that focused specifically on accountants. If we don't get good response, we may want to, look into something like that that focuses only on accountants, because then you really get the top of the tier there and people that have been experienced in accounting. Here, we're just opening it up to anyone.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, the
Rich,
other
you
side
might
of it-
want to, oh, sorry. Rich, you might want to consider GFOA and NICOM and alerting them to a position in financial as a comptroller.
Yep.
Okay.
I was going to say the other way that you can go with this too. I know Joanne is working a little less than a 40-hour week right now. If you get somebody who's really competent, they can step in and over a month or two realize that they don't have to stay here 5 days a week. That could be another thing that you could do with regards to the salary compensation. So instead of raising the salary, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Well, when we find that individual that's the right individual, I'm sure salary and benefits are going to be a negotiation.
Well, that's true. We do have pretty good benefits here with the health insurance. A lot of people that are out, especially on their own, do not have that.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Corporation funding. I asked to have this put on the agenda. I don't know how many realize this, but we're in year 11 of a 10-year program. We should actually be starting, on the next 5 years, for which we really don't have funding. And, in the past, we've gone in and we've made the case that the corporation is, very efficient at running this program, which everybody has agreed to. The DEC and the DEP, I think, love having us around, right, Vinny? Where's Vinny? Where'd he go? There you go. But times are getting a little tougher. Money is getting a little tighter. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a difficult challenge to, try to convince other agencies to help fund the corporation. And I think one of the things we need to think about seriously is, proving, the work we're doing is making a difference. And in that regard, I wanted to just kind of open that discussion up, but, leading off with New York City, I believe, is still doing reports on individual reservoirs and, what is going on with the reservoirs, giving a summary of the sampling results. Is that true, Vinny?
Sure what you're referring to. individual reports?
Yeah, with the reservoirs.
Yeah.
They used to do that all the time, and last time we talked to Dave Warren, he indicated they were still doing that, and he was gonna get them to me, and I've never seen them.
I have not seen them either. I'm not familiar with that effort. It's out of my wheelhouse, I guess.
All right, well, could you look into that potentially and see if we could get, copies of the reservoir reports if they exist?
Copies of individual reservoir reports.
Yep.
Okay, I will ask about that.
Annual reports on each reservoir and what's going on and what treatment's been done. You want me to send you one as an example?
Sure.
I can do that.
They do them all the time, Vinny, or you guys do. Water quality testing.
So-
It would not be the first time I am out of the loop.
Well, it's a big organization.
That it is.
But I also think, Kevin and maybe Corey might want to look into trying to justify, the benefits of the corporation as far as the impact on water quality. So that we have, I'm sorry, what, Vinny?
Well, I guess I should just ask, you need these reports in what context, I guess, just because I'm sure I'll be asked that.
In the context to see what's going on with the reservoirs. Are the phosphorus levels staying the same? Are they going down? Are they going up? Are
You're
we
just trying to
truly,
gauge if this effort has been effective in some way. Is that fair?
yeah,
Well, there's a bunch of things going on at the same time between the agricultural, the WAG group and everything else, but it would be interesting just to see what's happening to the reservoirs.
Okay.
so does anybody else have any thoughts on how we can build a hook to maybe, pull some money out of some agencies?
Well, there's some discussions, with, and I think I reached out to you and discussed this with you a while ago. The New York City Controller still needs to get money to run the city. And he did approach the legislature up there. And they told him that he needed to talk to some of the senators and assembly folks because they didn't have the votes to do what he wanted to do. And I've kind of already teed it up, as I mentioned, with at least my people, and I talked to a couple of other people that it would be great if we could get some more WQIP money for Westchester and Putnam County and possibly Dutchess, So I expect they're going to have to do that sooner or later. And I know Senator Harcum, Chris Burdick obviously is my new assembly person, but I would talk to yours also and tell them this is what we would like to see, that money funded for their vote.
Excellent idea.
I know Senator Cousins told them they did not have the votes to get that done. So they had to go out and lobby with individual senators and stuff.
I think a big problem that we have right now with getting any kind of funding for the 11 through 15 in the future is, what are we funding? What goal are we being asked to meet? I know that the Army Corps of Engineers is teeing up a group of projects that, in working with the DEC, that they're interested in completing with us. So there's the opportunity to get more retrofit funding, but what are we working towards? Are we working towards another, 460? Is it 200? Is it heightened education? Is it, what we really need to put a little pressure, I think, on the DEC to get an answer to what that new permit's going to require us to do.
When's the MS4 document coming out? Is it out already?
No, it is not out yet.
We looked at a couple of years.
I keep talking to Tom Snow about it. Tom Snow keeps saying, we expect it's going to be out within the month. We're doing an internal review. We expect it to be out in a month, but it just never seems to come out.
Well, maybe
Once
we
that
can get
permit comes out, I'm sure that's going to have the number we're going to have to hit. And based on the conversations we've had so far, I don't expect that number is going to go down.
Yeah.
They may try to refocus into different areas, going more with green infrastructure. But I think you can pretty well, at this point, bet on that number of phosphorus reduction that we're going to be obligated to do, staying about the same.
Yeah,
Okay,
Tom,
that's the impression that I've gotten from Tom as well, Rich. I didn't talk a hard number with him, but certainly that it's just keep going. You know, you said it before in previous meetings. You know, we're just going to keep the truck moving and line up these retrofits, and then when they give us our number, we're ready to meet it.
yeah, I talked to Tom yesterday, and he's, to your point on some of the, I guess, Army Corps of Engineers, there's a bunch of federal money, and he's trying to figure out how to get the more WQIP and the federal money to work together so that both internally for the stuff that we do with the county with storm, not with stormwater, but with sewage, and also for East of Hudson.
Yeah. Now, I wonder if it's since there's a value that I think Tom is working with Army Corps for what that dollar value will be, that in combination with the CFA grant process that's out right now for the green infrastructure, maybe we could eventually we'll have a hard 25% local match number that we could actually request for new additional WQIP funds. So we might be able to say, hey, if we're going to get $1 million in funding from everything else, can we get an extra 250 from the WQIP so that we're not going back and draining our reserves right now that we have in Westchester County, because that admin money will run out if we don't boost it up. Yeah, so I don't think we're that far away from having a specific request for that local match value.
Well, I'll ask him today again if he has a good idea of what's going to be coming out in the MS4 for bubble compliance for us. He called me late yesterday, I'll also ask him, about some of the funding. I know that Chris Burdick and they had a budget meeting yesterday up in Albany. And I know they were all asking, they had all the commissioners there, and I know Basil Sagos, who's the head of the DEC, they had talked to him a day or two ago. And an hour after they talked to him, that's why Tom called me. And they're trying to understand EFC funding and things like that for WQIP monies for the counties. So it went in a real circle, it went in a quick circle real fast.
All right, well, Kevin, I'm sure you and I are going to be having conversations about this, going forward as well as everyone else.
Rich, before we get off of the funding topic, there was, as I was alluding to before, there's many of you may have already seen it. The green infrastructure grants are out there that CFA is awarding, and Corey and I are going after them pretty hard to try to get something in. As I was thinking about yesterday, though, in the past, what has happened is a lot of the municipalities will go after these grants on their own and then tell us after the fact. They'll list us as the local match without us knowing about it. So I think it might be appropriate for either a letter to come from our office or your office, Rich, notifying everybody and reminding them, hey, if you're going after these grants, you need to involve East of Hudson at the beginning. Can't be at 100%, 60% design when everything's already done. And we need to know what's going on now, rather than people showing up at the door asking for funding. So I don't know if that's something that you'd want to send out, Rich, or if you think I should reach out to the supervisors myself.
Listen, I'm happy to do it either way. If you want to ghost the letter, work with Linda, and I'll sign it, or you send it. I don't particularly care.
Okay.
But I do agree with what you're saying.
All right.
All right. You want to get into project update?
Sure. So we're starting to ramp up for construction. We're out to bid on Carmel CF 601 currently, which is channel stabilization on DEP property. We've got a note.
Before you go further with that, I apologize. That's going to be brought to the town board on the February 10th meeting. So hopefully they vote on it the week after for the easement agreements that you've asked for.
Okay, thank you.
So you know
Yep.
where that is on our end.
Okay. The next two projects we'll be going out for is channel stabilization in Pound Ridge, as well as an installation in Scalpino Park in Southeast. I expect to be out to bid on those in mid-February for probably the March Executive Committee award. And the MKNC 601, which are the catch basin inserts at the Village Hall, is wrapping up today. That installation has happened over the last few months. The annual report will go in for 2020, will go into the state by the end of next week. And we are looking to get out to RFP on a group of catch basin insert projects scattered about through the watershed that I think can go in really quickly, and we should be able to get these in during the summer, which we're pretty excited about. If there's any project-specific questions, I'd be happy to address those if anybody has anything.
Just to mention that the NUMS06 or whatever the one is for Keeler Lane.
Yeah.
She had the documents, gave them to her lawyer, and of course, her lawyer asked for Exhibit C and stuff. So we just sent them over to her. I guess I got that from you about a week ago, Kevin.
Yeah.
But it looks like she's fine with moving forward. Her lawyer's reviewing the stuff. So hopefully we can get that going also.
Great.
Want to talk about Putnam County MB 701, Kevin?
Yeah. Okay. So we had the existing, just to review from previous meetings, we've had an existing reimbursement agreement with Putnam County for the work that was done at Tilly Foster. That was an installation for channel stabilization and a wet extended detention pond that netted the corporation approximately 21 kilograms. That reduction has been accounted for and sent into the state already. We originally agreed to an amount not to exceed $240,000 for all for eligible costs. The county overshot that and came back to us requesting an updated reimbursement. I have to find that figure exactly. The project, for us, it would be an additional reimbursement of $137,000. They overshot the construction cost by more than that, but have accepted that they need to take responsibility for some of the financial responsibility for the project as well. And we split the overage by 50%. So we'll be paying about $140,000. They'll be paying $140,000 of their own funding as well. What we have today is the amendment to the reimbursement agreement in order to move forward with payment to the county and specifically any final review that the DEP might want to exercise on the project. As long as everything is accepted by the DEP for funding and as acceptable costs, we can move ahead and write that payment to Putnam County.
Hey, Rich Vanzetti, you had some questions, or you at least wanted to see the backup. Are you comfortable with the backup?
I am fine right now. Yes, sir.
Okay. I have a question. I don't know if this is for Joe or for Kevin, but in looking at the information you provided, what I took away from that is there was about $236,000 in material costs and equipment costs, and somewhere about 148,000 in manpower costs. Is that correct?
Yes, Linda,
Yeah.
scroll down. Linda, do you have the separate calculations, the worksheet that right there? That gives a breakdown of all there were two submittals, and most of the materials and equipment were paid in the September voucher. And Linda, if you scroll down just a little bit more, the middle of that page, the 148, the 137 additional share is going to be for all of the labor costs.
So
Because what happened when they submitted, that was the easiest way to break down. It didn't go by the timing of what was done. It went more by what they could provide backup for. So
Right.
they provided well above what they were billing originally. So I just was able to allocate towards equipment and materials because they had so much of that. So it's a little different than we normally do with regard to when the work was done. This is more because it was such a large, expenditure. It was easier just as they could provide me the backup for different items. That's what we agreed to pay.
Okay. Total labor cost for the whole project, 148,701, right? That's total labor costs.
Correct.
And then,
Well, they did not, they probably have paid their own, obviously. This is not including what they have done because they've also agreed, as Kevin said, to pay 100 or to pay 50%. So I'm not so sure they don't have additional labor costs out there on the project. The project is a $500,000 project.
well, that's what I'm not understanding with the numbers you provided here, how we got to 500,000.
I see. Okay. Yeah, so we're paying.
So what you're saying is there's additional labor costs that they did not provide.
Well, I'm not sure if there's anything else out there that they did not provide because this is what we have so far that they've submitted to me. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so how'd we get to the 514,000,
Those are all the items that they have submitted to me.
which is 148,000 in labor costs and
Correct. Yes, correct.
and 200 and some odd thousand in materials.
Correct.
That doesn't add up to 500,000.
Because the additional Putnam County additional share of 137,000 has to be added in. They did not provide me detail on that.
Okay, that's what I was saying.
Correct.
Is there a reason they didn't provide any detail?
Kevin, can you answer that or?
No, I'm looking back at it now and seeing where the discrepancy is.
How did we end up with this thing going so far over?
The reasoning that I was given, and I can certainly agree, was that that at that time during construction, it was an extremely wet summer, and they kept battling wet terrain and high water table, getting this done, and the materials and the amount of time that it took to get it done, it just ran over. Is just short of it. Of course, it goes back to, it should have, when they saw that it was running over, they should have notified us, and so we had a chance to evaluate it.
How many kilograms is this?
It's about 21.
And our total cost into it is going to be what? I see we have an additional
It
share.
will approximately 380.
So, I mean, I'm not doing the math very quickly in my head. What is that, about 19,000 a kilogram?
Yeah, just about.
Which is extremely efficient. So from a cost point of view, it's not unreasonable, but the way it kind of happened, it wasn't a fixed price contract to begin with.
Sorry?
Was the contractor provided a price to do the work, I'm assuming, right?
So the Putnam County used their own personnel, their own materials. When they went out to bid, the bids came back significantly higher than even what this final cost of the project is. They felt they could do it for much less, so they used their own resources, their own material. Turns out that they probably, I think it still came in under the estimates that Putnam County had gotten from the contractors, but certainly higher than what they thought they could do.
So let me be clear. I mean, I'm not opposed to approving the resolution. I'm not opposed to giving Putnam County the additional money. What I'm concerned about is, what I just heard is we're basing the number that we're giving to Putnam County off of $137,000 of, unaccounted for expenses. That's what I'm not understanding.
I don't believe that it's unaccounted for, Rich, but Joanne and I will go back and add it all up and make sure it's presented in a way that it's clear what those other costs are.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at where it says total cost of project, I'm looking at two numbers adding up to 514, and I know there's other columns and stuff there, but this is a little confusing to me.
Yeah, if you add up those
No,
two
no,
numbers,
the total, yeah, you could only see the bottom half of the page. If you go up to the top, Linda, you see 240,350 was the original contract amount. To that, you add the additional two 50/50 pieces to get to the 514.
that I understand, but when you add up the material costs plus the labor costs, they don't come up to 514.
Right. What I did was I went in and just tried to find backup for what they were requesting of us. I
Yeah,
went,
I mean, not that they shouldn't charge us for the equipment, but FEMA rates are not cheap rates, and obviously, I don't think it cost them 180,000 for the equipment to do the work. I know we're going through it right now with ISAIS, with FEMA, and their rates for generators, there's rates for everything.
Yeah, listen, Warren, I agree, but those are the standards that we, accepted, and those are the standards we use for all our highway departments. I don't know how we walk away from that.
Well, again, it's very efficient. I think, to your point, if we can just get the numbers from them to understand exactly how it totaled up to the 500. That's what you're interested in, right, Rich?
That's what I'm interested in.
Okay, we'll get the clarity on there and supply it to you guys.
Yeah, and it's all their internal numbers, so they're going to be able, they'll make it come out perfectly, but I think he just wants to see it.
Yeah, I thought that info was in the backup. I apologize if I spoke too soon. It doesn't seem that a lot of it is, so.
All right.
Is this your-
Does anybody want to move this resolution, or you want to hold it off for another meeting?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm sorry, Rich, who did you ask?
I'm sorry, Warren?
He
Did
asked
you
all
ask all of us, or did you ask somebody specifically?
No, I didn't ask anybody specifically.
So this is a municipality. It's not a contractor. Whether they get it today or tomorrow or next month, I don't think it would hurt them. Would that make sense, right?
Well, this is all going back to 2019 anyway.
Yeah, so obviously. So I think if we get the real numbers, to get the accurate numbers, I'm more than happy to go forward. And I'm either way, I give approval to do it as long as we get the numbers and maybe you take a look at them and they look like they all add up. Or we can wait until next month.
Well, what would you like? What's your pleasure?
I would just wait, quite frankly. If it's 2019 stuff, we ask them for one more set of numbers and then we approve it next month. Because what's going to happen is this is going to go in our file and somebody at some point in time may look at it and they're going to say, how come nothing added up, or how come this isn't, where's the detail?
All right, then let's, anybody have an objection to tabling this?
No.
May I just say,
No, Warren is right on this.
Can I just make a point, though, that we're all in agreement that this is just one page. We have multiple pages of backup of copies of bills and invoices and the hours that the employees put in. This is not all of it, Linda, because it's with the September voucher. This is just the labor. But with the September voucher, we have all sorts of copies, and it adds up to the approximately 387 or 377 that we are paying. I have specific numbers that add up to the 377,000, just so you're aware.
Yeah,
But we're-
no, I understand that, but if
Yeah,
you're
okay.
asking the board to approve a 50% reimbursement of the
That you don't,
overall,
I understand. Okay.
how do we know what the 50% is?
Yeah,
Kevin, you
we
had
need to
done
know
some-
it's 50% of what?
Kevin had some conversations with them and had originally gotten that number of the 270 that we split 50-50. So maybe Kevin and I can go back and clarify that. I understand what you're saying now. You want to see the second part of the 50-50 split.
Yeah.
Okay. Kevin, are you aware of where that original additional number came from?
Well, I think it's just going to end up being the exact backup that we have with more values to it.
More detail.
Yeah, it's either going to be more detail or we're just going to end up redoing this sheet that we're looking at right now to show different, to show more detail. But it's there.
I was good with this sheet. The sheet was very helpful.
Right.
But it also raised the question about if you've got X in labor costs and Y in material costs, and they don't add up to the total cost, what's the difference?
Right. So we'll Joanne and I will work together and get it cleared out.
All right, that would be great. All right, let's move on to O&M program update.
Yes. All right. So bills are being accounted for. There's the only outstanding one, I think, that I just want to get a little clarity, like Joanne said, was with the town of Lewisboro. So Peter Parsons, I will give you a call after this meeting to lock in your value that we're going with for the calendar year. One of the items that I wanted to discuss here today was the requested, we're going to go out to RFP for O&M services for the catch basin inserts, so that we have somebody, a contractor on call that will clean all basins and replace all filters throughout the watershed. A lot of these projects are on private property, and many towns have voiced the concern that they don't want personnel going into private, town personnel going into homeowners associations or on commercial properties to address these filters. So this is the way to solve that issue as it comes up as we start installing these. What my intention was to do the RFP and then submit it to the technical committee for any comments. And then we'll go out to bid. I would expect in possibly late February, March, once we have a tally for all projects that we think are appropriate for these services to grab. I am wondering if it's in our best interest to include other types of retrofits as well on this RFP. In a lot of cases, towns don't have vac trucks, and they're hiring, they're going out to contract themselves, and they're hiring people to come in with vac trucks to clean their particle separators, their HDS units, their storm filter vaults. I'm wondering if it would serve the corporation well to go out and include those services as well under an RFP. So I wanted to get everybody's feedback on that.
I know a bunch of towns in Westchester a number of years ago, maybe 4 or 5, I'm guessing, we received 175,000 each, and a bunch of us purchased those vac machines. I know I have one. I think it cost me 230,000 at the time, and that was a big chunk of the money. So we have one. I think a lot of towns in Westchester do. I don't know about Putnam, so just to throw that out there.
As far as I know, everybody's good in Putnam.
I know Kent does not. Kent goes out. I don't think they have one. I'll double check their submittal, but I don't believe
I think Rich Osmer borrows the counties from time to time.
That's probably accurate. Yeah.
So,
but I mean, certainly what I've seen in that case, I can use Richie as an example. His submittal will see the vac truck being used, personnel that have to do it. But then that submittal also will include the disposal of the material, which involves a dump truck, a backhoe, time at the landfill. And what we end up paying, I feel like that number is getting higher than if we got a private contractor to execute this stuff across the entire watershed. I don't want to go and try to, save a dime, save a nickel, but I think that this could actually have an impact across the watershed for everybody's bills if we were to include those additional vaults so that folks don't have to, you know, add up all that labor when it can be, I think, a little bit more controlled and a little bit cheaper.
Do we go back to them when we get some of the O&M and say this is unreasonable?
If it's unreasonable, yes, yeah, but you know, it's if that's what they have to do to get the work done, then I think it is a reasonable expense.
Well, yeah, Kevin, but if we've got 16 municipalities or 17 municipalities with these, you know, with the vaults in it that are cleaning them out, say, pick a number, $1,000 a vault, and Kent is charging $2,000 a vault, that's not reasonable,
Correct.
right? So the
I don't,
question
yeah.
is Kent's cost for cleaning these significantly higher than everybody else?
No, it's not. But I'm just using that as an example that there are a lot of pieces that go into it, and I think that if we're paying a contractor, we may for a contractor that's going to have vaults across the entire watershed. I think their number is going to be a little bit more aggressive and probably a little bit lower than if we're paying municipal staff that have, you know, retirement benefits and additional labor. There's a chance that it's going to come out more efficient, and I think it's worth considering.
You're asking to go for an RFP, Kevin? Is that what you were saying?
Well, I'd like to go for the RFP for the catch basin inserts alone, which I think everyone can agree is a good idea, but I'm wondering whether or not we should add, you know, the other vaults within the watershed as well.
I think you need to keep them separated. I think you need to see, you know, you can put out an RFP, you don't have to act on it, right? So you can
Right.
put the RFP out for vacuuming, see what it costs. So if your theory is correct, that says, yeah, I get more bang for the buck if I use privatize it versus using staff, well, then that's one thing. But again, all these people have their own vac trucks. Town of Carmel has 2 vac trucks, right? So,
Right.
you know, we've spent money. I think we even had East of Hudson funds for that. You know, we use maybe not the towns, but other folks have purchased theirs through East of Hudson funds. So, you know, you got to be wary of that question too, right? So,
Sure.
I think the cost benefit analysis needs to be done. And the one way to do it is to get that RFP, at least to understand it. And if it works out to the benefit of the corporation, then maybe we do it. Then we make the decision. But we can't make that decision now unless the board doesn't want to move forward with that thought process.
Well,
I agree with that, Rich.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, when you were talking before about the extra cost on top of labor, I was saying, welcome to government. I'm not sure if we have to do prevailing wage on some of those things. Engineering is one thing, but I don't know if something like that. Do we do prevailing wage on all our jobs, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
we do.
yeah, you have to.
It's not going to be cheap.
You have to, and so you could consider doing this as a bid alternate per what Rich Franzetti was saying, rather than doing it as a separate, you know, solicitation.
But I think there's going to be 2 separate types of companies to deal with the inserts. That's backtrack.
Yeah,
really, right?
true.
I would agree. I'd want to keep the inserts separate,
Okay.
you know, and see how that comes out. I don't have a problem putting the RFP out, but then my last question is how are we going to pay for it?
Good question, because I think what'll end up happening is if we go out to bid on this now and we get those figures now, then we can include them in the budgets for the municipalities to each. You know, if we know that it's going to be $100,000, let's just say, if we know what everybody's percentage is based on the O&M policy, you can have every municipality budget for that value for the 2022 year, and go about it that way.
So what you're suggesting is then the municipalities collectively are going to split that cost.
Yes,
Rather
because that's
than,
everybody is collectively splitting the costs across all the O&M as is.
right, but I'd have to think about that for a second, because typically I'm taking care of the O&M for everything in my town, and so I've got a number, right? Which then goes back against my, you know, as a credit towards what I owe.
Yeah.
So,
Well, theoretically, if it's costs less to have somebody else do it, it's going to save money. But I think you get some prices just to get an idea what a vac truck I'm sure our highway guys can probably give you those quotes, because at times they have to go out and get either excavators or other pieces of equipment to come in and help or do work when something breaks. So
Yeah,
That's
we
something that
have, we've got like a per diem value that I've seen that's been submitted from the towns that don't have vac trucks. For instance, the folks at 3D, I think it's 3D maintenance. They pop up a lot for, as a company that the municipalities use and rent their trucks from. So we have some basis to go off of, but I think, to Rich Franzetti's point, this could just be an exercise in figuring out what, what's the best way to do it? What's the best way to get to lower that value and lower that dollar value?
More information.
So as of now, I'll keep the two separate so that they don't, we don't muddy the one one that we think we can execute immediately and one that we can use as a little bit more of a research tool to decide whether or not we go forward with it.
Yeah, those catch basin inserts, to have somebody else do them, I think that's critical. They're all over the place and
Yep.
they'll just get ignored if we don't get somebody in to maintain them.
Yep.
All right. Checks and vouchers we've done. Other business. Anybody have any other business? We have a personnel issue.
Do we?
Do we have a personnel issue?
Well, this is just regarding Linda. If you wanted to speak to this, we will be adding Linda to our health insurance, providing health insurance for her family starting April 1st.
So
And
this-
with regards to that, we had in the past, in her employment agreement, given her a certain amount of dollars in lieu of health insurance. So we will be adjusting her amendment or her agreement, her agreement for hire with regard to her compensation to take that amount of money back and provide her with family health insurance starting April 1st.
So listen, I see this as an employee benefit that's within our, employee
Well,
policy.
of course,
We're
we
just
have no
following
say.
that. I don't know that we need to really talk about this any more than we already have.
The only reason I'm talking about it is her agreement for hire will be amended to take that $5,000 back that was given to her in lieu, unless you have some,
That's in the personnel policy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we made a special arrangement. We made a special arrangement for Linda. We don't normally provide, oh, you're saying in the personnel policy, it now states that we will give that amount. So we amended the personnel policy for that.
I believe that's right.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm asking you, Christine, then, now that this happens, as a matter of policy, I will, come April 1st, adjust her pay accordingly and give her the health insurance. That's all.
I don't think there's no resolutions we need on that.
So there's nothing, right, okay, it's all a matter of policy anyway. Yes, we cannot deny health insurance. Okay.
All
I
right.
didn't, I thought you had mentioned that the, her rate of pay, we'll have to give her a new rate of pay that we do every year for the auditor. We'll have to just amend that for the auditor.
Well, there should be the same rate of pay with a $5,000, however, a stipend or whatever.
Yes, her pay does not change, correct. Correct. So we'll just put a note in the file for the auditor that she has now picked up the, because they'll look at her paycheck and say, why is it reduced? And that will be my explanation of that sign. Rich, I'll have you sign it.
Fine.
That we've given her the health insurance effective April 1st.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We need to talk about anything else?
Nope.
All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
One
Aye.
thing to do.
All right. It's good seeing you all today. Hope you have a
Thank
lovely
you.
day.
Do, Rich.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
Bye
Take care,
bye.
everybody.
Warren, do we actually just borrow your vac truck whenever we need one? Or
Well,
do we?
you may, but then we borrow.
No,
yours.
you don't.
I'm not sure.
What?
You don't borrow theirs, Peter. You get it from 3D maintenance.
I do?